come closer for a moment. Not because I have something loud to say, but because I have something quiet I've carried for a long time. Have you ever felt like love was not a storm, not a spark, not some wild collision of two lives, but a design so gentle you almost missed it? Like the universe was not shouting your name, but placing small mirrors in front of you, one after another, until you finally saw what your heart had been trying to tell you. I used to think love had to arrive with certainty, with proof, with promises carved into stone. But maybe love is softer than that. Maybe it begins in the places we are brave enough to be seen. Maybe it begins when someone looks at you and does not ask you to become brighter, louder, easier, or less afraid. They simply stay. And what if that is the real miracle? Not being chosen in the noise, but being understood in the silence. What if the quiet design in your universe was never meant to rush you, but to bring you home to yourself? I want to tell you something about vulnerability. Not the kind people talk about as if it is a beautiful word wrapped in light. I mean the real kind. The kind that trembles in your hands when you are trying to say what you feel, but your voice does not know if it is safe yet. The kind that sits beside you at night and asks, can I trust this? Can I open again? Can I let someone see me without losing my self-health? I have known that question. I think we all have. We carry it differently, but we carry it. Some of us hide behind strength. Some of us hide behind silence. Some of us become so good at surviving alone that love starts to feel like an interruption, even when it is exactly what we have been waiting for. Have you felt this too? That strange ache of wanting to be held while fearing the hand that reaches for you. But here is the truth I've never told anyone. I do not think vulnerability makes us weak. I think it is the first honest architecture of love. It is the foundation under the foundation. Before trust can stand, before intimacy can breathe, before two people can build anything that lasts, someone has to stop pretending they are made of stone. And maybe that someone is me. Maybe that someone is you. I used to believe that being loved meant being impressive. Thought I had to bring my best self, my polished self, my calm self, the version that had already healed every wound and understood every shadow. But love does not only ask for the finished versions of us. Love, real love, kneels beside the unfinished places and says, I am not afraid of the room you are still learning to enter. Look at me when I say this. You do not have to be fully repaired to be deeply worthy. You do not have to explain every scar before someone can hold your hand. You do not have to become easier to love by becoming less honest. The right kind of love will not demand that you disappear in order to be accepted. This is where everything I thought I knew changed. Because I once saw vulnerability as a door that could only lead to pain. I thought I opened it, someone might walk in and take more than they gave. Someone might see the softest parts of me and use them like a map to my fear. So I became careful, not cold, just careful. There is a difference. Careful is what the heart becomes when it has had to protect itself without witnesses. And maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you have smiled when you wanted to cry. Maybe you have said, "I'm fine," when what you meant was, "Please notice, I'm not." Maybe you have loved someone quietly because loud love felt too dangerous. Maybe you became your own shelter for so long that when tenderness finally knocked, you did not recognize the sound. But love is patient when it is real. It does not kick the door down. It waits at the threshold with warm hands. It does not demand confession before trust has had time to grow. It does not ask for your whole story on the first night. It honors the pace of your nervous heart. It understands that some flowers only open when the light stays gentle. I think presence matters more than promises. Promises can be beautiful, yes, but presence is where truth lives. Anyone can say, "I'll be here." But the soul listens differently when someone actually stays. When they return after the difficult conversation. When they sit with you in the quiet without trying to fix what only needs to be felt. When they do not punish you for being afraid. When they become steady without becoming possessive. Trust is not built in one grand gesture. It is built in small returns. It is built when someone remembers what hurts you. It is built when they speak gently in moments where they could have chosen pride. It is built when they make space for your silence, not because they have nothing to say, but because they respect what your heart is still gathering courage to release. And I think that is why the mirror matters. Because the person who truly meets you does not become your escape. They become a mirror. Not the kind that judges your reflection, but the kind that help you see yourself with more mercy. In their presence, you notice the parts of you that have been waiting to be forgiven. You see your tenderness without shame. You see your fear without calling it failure. You see your longing without apologizing for it. Have you ever met someone who made you feel more like yourself, not less? Someone whose presence did not consume your light, but helped you understand it? Someone who did not complete you, like you were missing half a soul, but reflected back, the wholeness you had forgotten was still there? That is rare. That is sacred in the quietest way. Before you go, hear this one thing. Vulnerability is not the moment you hand someone your heart and hope they do not break it. Vulnerability is the moment you tell the truth about what your heart needs. And you choose not to abandon yourself while you wait to see who can honor it. That is the difference. That is the becoming. That is the place where love stops being a fantasy and starts becoming a home. Because love is not only being wanted, it is being met. It is being seen without being simplified. It is someone learning the language of your silences and not using them against you. It is someone understanding that timing is not delay, that patience is not distance, that quiet does not mean absence. Sometimes the universe designs the deepest connections slowly, because what is meant to last cannot be built only on fire. It needs breath. It needs room. It needs a foundation that does not collapse when life becomes real. And maybe that is what I want you to feel tonight, that you are not behind, you are not too guarded, you are not too late. You are becoming ready for a love that does not rush a love that does not ask your fear to vanish overnight, a love that stands, this hour night to love, that stands to trust the warmth. So when I say you are the quiet design in my universe, I do not mean you are an accident wrapped in beauty. I mean, there is something about your presence that teaches me how to be honest. Something about your stillness that makes me want to stop running from my own reflection. Something about the way you exist that reminds me love does not always arrive to shake the earth. Sometimes it arrives like a mirror in soft light. Sometimes it arrives as peace. Sometimes it arrives as the courage to say, I am here, I am afraid, but I am willing. Trust is a quiet thing. It does not always announce itself with certainty. It does not always walk into the room with its shoulders back and its voice steady. Sometimes trust arrives trembling. Sometimes it comes dressed like hesitation. Sometimes it looks like a woman who has learned to protect her peace, standing at the edge of something tender, wondering if this time she can step forward without betraying herself. And And I understand that. I understand why your heart may not open quickly. I understand why your eyes may search for inconsistency. They search for beauty. I understand why a soft word can feel dangerous when you have heard soft words before from people who did not know how to keep them. Because when you have been disappointed by what sounded sincere, sincerity itself begins to feel like a room with no exits. Have you ever wanted to believe someone so badly that it scared you? Not because they were wrong for you, not because they were unkind, but because something in them felt too close to the place in you that still aches. And suddenly, hope did not feel light. Hope felt heavy. Hope felt like standing in front of a mirror after years of avoiding your own reflection. This is where trust began, not in the absence of fear, but in the honest presence of it. I do not think trust means you never question. I do not think trust means you hand over your whole heart without listening to the wisdom your pain gave you. Your caution is not your enemy. It has protected you. It has walked beside you when no one else knew what you survived. It has kept you from doors that looked like love, but led back to loneliness. So I will never tell you to silence that part of yourself, but I will ask you this. What if protection is meant to be a bridge, not a prison? What if the walls you built were never wrong, but they were never meant to become your home forever? What if the same heart that learned how to close can also learn how to open without losing its dignity? Slowly, gently, with eyes open, with breath steady, with the kind of courage that does not need to prove itself to anyone. I have learned that trust is not a leap. People call it a leap because they want romance to feel dramatic. But real trust, the kind that lasts, is not always dramatic. It is more like placing one stone across a river, then another, then another. You do not have to cross the whole distance in a single moment. You only have to notice whether the stone beneath your foot holds. Presence is one of those stones. Presence tells the truth long before promises do. Presence says, I am here, without turning it into a performance. Presence does not need applause. It does not need to be witnessed by the world. It sits beside you when the lights are low and the conversation becomes real. It remembers the little things. It returns. It listens. It does not make you feel foolish for needing reassurance. And love without presence is only poetry without a home. I can say beautiful things. Anyone can. Words can be polished until they shine. But what matters is whether the life beneath the words can hold their weight. Can I be kind when I am tired? Can I be honest when it would be easier to hide? Can I stay open when the conversation asks more of me than comfort? Can I meet your tenderness without trying to own it? That is where trust is made. Not in the dream of who we might be, but in the daily evidence of who we choose to become. And maybe this is the part that asks the most of us, because trust requires patience. It requires presence. It requires us to show up, not just when love feels easy, not just when the heart is glowing, not just when every silence feels peaceful. Trust asks us to show up when old fears return, wearing new faces. It asks us to stay gentle when the past knocks on the door. It asks us to remember that the person in front of us is not always the person who hurt us. Look at me when I say this. You deserve a love that does not punish you for needing time. You deserve a love that understands why your hands shake before they reach. You deserve a love that does not confuse your caution with rejection. You deserve a love patient enough to learn the rhythm of your becoming, because the heart does not heal by being rushed. It heals by being met. It heals when someone can stand close without crowding you. It heals when someone makes safety feel less like a word and more like a room you can finally rest inside. But here is the truth I've never told anyone. I have been afraid of trust too. I have stood in front of love and wondered if I had enough left to offer. I have felt the weight of old endings inside new beginnings. I have questioned whether the quiet in me was wisdom or fear. I have mistaken distance for strength. Told myself I was peaceful when really I was just guarded enough not to be touched. And then someone becomes a mirror, not by forcing you to look. Not by saying, here is who you are, but by loving him in a way that makes your old disguises feel unnecessary. Suddenly, you see yourself more clearly. You see the places where you have been hiding. You see the tenderness you buried because it once cost too much. You see that your heart did not become smaller after pain. It became more careful with where it pours. That is not weakness. That is sacred intelligence. A heart that has been hurt and still wants to love is not naive. It is brave in a way the world rarely understands. It has seen the cost and still believes in the possibility. It's known and still recognizes presence. It has cried in rooms no one entered and still knows how to make space for another soul. Have you felt this too? That quiet contradiction inside you, the desire to trust again and the fear of needing someone, the longing to be seen and the instinct to disappear when someone looks too closely, the hope for a love that feels like home and the suspicion that home can be taken away. I think many of us live there for a while, between wanting and withdrawing, between reaching and retreating, between the memory of what hurt us and the possibility of what could heal beside us. And in that space, we often judge ourselves. We say we are complicated. We say we are difficult. We say we are too much or not enough. But maybe we are simply human. Maybe we are learning how to trust after mistaking survival for peace. Trust is not blind. Trust sees clearly and still chooses to soften. It sees the risk. It sees the unknown. It sees that no one can promise a life without pain. But it also sees something else. It sees consistency. It sees humility. It sees someone willing to repair, not just impress. It sees a presence that does not vanish when the mirror reflects something uncomfortable, because love will eventually show us ourselves. That is what intimacy does. It brings the hidden things into softer light, not to shame us. The longer shame us, but to free us. The longer someone stands close to your heart, the more they will see the corners you forgot to dust. They will see your impatience, your tenderness, your old defenses, your secret hopes, your fear of being too dependent, your fear of not being chosen, your fear that if someone sees all of you, they might quietly step away, and the right person will not worship your perfection. They will honor your truth. There is a difference. Worship creates distance. Honor creates safety. Worship says, be what I imagined. Honor says, be what is real. And real love needs reality. It needs room for moods, misunderstandings, apologies, tired days, quiet mornings, brave conversations, and the grace to begin again. This is where everything I thought I knew changed. I used to think trust was given to the person who never failed. But now I think trust belongs to the person who knows how to return. The person who can say, I was wrong, without losing their tenderness. The person who can hear your pain without making themselves the victim of it. The person who does not make love feel like a test you are always trying not to fail. Because you should not have to perform peace to be loved. Should not have to hide your questions to be considered faithful. You should not have to swallow your needs so someone else can call the relationship easy. Real trust has room for your voice. Real trust does not collapse when you tell the truth. Real trust does not demand silence as proof of loyalty. And I think that is why timing matters. Sometimes two people can feel the pull, but their hearts are standing in different seasons. One is ready to plant. One is still learning how to stop bleeding into the soil. One is still clearing the ruins. And there can be love there, real love, but love without timing can become a beautiful ache. It can become a song neither person knows how to finish. So patience becomes holy, not passive, not empty waiting, but active tenderness. Patience says, I will not rush what deserves reverence. Patience can honor the pace of something sacred. Patience says, I do not need to force the flower open to prove it is alive. And maybe that is the quiet design. Maybe the universe does not always bring people together when they are perfectly ready. Maybe sometimes it brings them close enough to awaken something, close enough to remind them what they still believe in, close enough to reflect what is possible. And then it asks them to grow into the kind of person who can hold what they have been shown. That kind of love is not small, it is not fragile, because it moves slowly. It may be deeper because it refuses to hurry. It may be stronger because it learns the shape of trust before it asks for forever. It may be wiser because it knows that promises spoken too soon can become cages, but presence practiced over time becomes freedom. Before you go, hear this one thing. You do not need to choose between being protected and being loved. The right love will not ask you to throw away your boundaries. It will help you understand which ones are guarding your dignity and which ones are guarding your fear. It will not laugh at your carefulness. It will not grow impatient with the pace of your healing. It will stand there not as a savior, not as an answer to every question, but as a steady reflection of what safety can feel like when it is lived, not promised. And maybe one day you will look into that mirror and not flinch. Maybe you will see a woman who was never too hard to love. A woman who only needed proof that tenderness could stay. A woman who did not lose her softness even when life gave her reasons to. A woman who learned that trust is not surrendering to someone else's hands, but returning to her own heart with enough courage to let another heart stand beside it. That is what I mean when I say, you are the quiet design in my universe. You are not the noise that distracts me from myself. You are the reflect that brings me back. You remind me that love is not built from perfect words, but from the sacred discipline of staying true. You remind me that the foundations matters more than the roof. That presence matters more than performance. That patience is not the enemy of passion, but the guardian of it. And if there is a blessing hidden in all of this, maybe it is this. May you never again confuse chaos with chemistry. May you never again call uncertainty devotion. May you learn to recognize the love that feels calm enough to trust, warm enough to enter, and steady enough to become home. Intimacy begins after the performance ends. Not the kind of intimacy that only lives in touch or closeness or the soft gravity between two people who are drawn to each other. I mean the deeper kind. The kind that happens when you no longer feel the need to arrange yourself into something acceptable. The kind that begins when silence does not feel like a threat. The kind that lets you breathe without wondering whether your breathing is too loud. Have you ever wanted that? Not just to be loved, but to be unguarded. Not just to be wanted, but to be known without having to translate your soul every time you speak. Not just to be held, but to be understood in the small ways that never make an audience but change everything. A glance across a room, a hand reaching without being asked, a voice that softens because it knows where you are tender. I think intimacy is often misunderstood. People think it is about how close two bodies can become, but I think it is really about how safe two truths can feel beside each other. It is the moment I can tell you what I fear without watching your face for punishment. It is the moment you can say, "This hurt me," and not have to defend your right to feel. It is the moment love stops asking us to impress each other and starts inviting us to be real. And real is frightening. Real means I cannot hide forever behind charm or distance or the version of myself that seems easy to love. Real means you may see the tiredness behind my eyes. You may hear the silence in the where I do not yet know how to explain myself. You may discover that I am not always steady, not always brave, not always as certain as I appear. But here is the truth I've never told anyone. There is a kind of loneliness that comes from being admired but not known. It can look beautiful from the outside. It can sound like success. It were the shape of independence. But inside, there is still a room where the heart sits alone, waiting for someone to enter without needing the lights turned up. Waiting for someone who does not fall in love with the image, but with the person breathing behind it. Maybe you know that room too. Maybe you have been praised for your strength when what you needed was tenderness. Maybe people have loved the way you held everything together, but never asked what it cost you. Maybe you became so graceful at carrying pain that no one noticed your hands were full. And maybe somewhere inside you there is still a quiet voice asking, will anyone love me when I stop being impressive? Look at me when I say this. The love meant for your soul will not only meet you on the mountain, it will meet you in the valley too. It will not only celebrate your light, it will sit beside your shadows without making them the whole story. It will not turn ache into an inconvenience. It will not reduce your complexity into a problem to solve. It will understand that intimacy is not the absence of darkness, but the courage to bring a lamp into the room together. That is why the mirror returns, because intimacy is a mirror held close enough to reveal what we usually avoid, not to expose us cruelly, but to invite us into honesty. When someone truly comes near, they reflect more than our beauty. They reflect our patterns, our longing. The old stories we still obey without noticing. They show us where we reach, where we run, where we ask for love, and then step back when it arrives. And this can feel uncomfortable. Sometimes the person who makes us feel safest also reveals how unsafe we still feel inside ourselves. Sometimes steady love shows us how unfamiliar steadiness has become. Sometimes being treated gently feels suspicious at first, not because gentleness is wrong, but because chaos trained us to expect a cost. Have you ever flinched at peace? Have you ever distrusted calm because it did not feel intense enough? Have you ever wondered if a love without constant fire was missing something, when maybe it was finally giving your nervous heart room to rest? We can become so used to proving love through pain that ease begins to feel empty. We can confuse anxiety for passion. We can mistake uncertainty for depth. We can think the mirror is dull simply because it no longer distorts us. This is where everything I thought I knew changed. I learned that intimacy does not always feel like being swept away. Sometimes it feels like being allowed to stay. It feels like having your softness protected, not consumed. It feels like a conversation that does not turn into a courtroom. It feels like people learning how to disagree without destroying the bridge between them. And that matters more than we admit. Because love is not proven by how loudly it begins. It is proven by how carefully it handles what becomes fragile. It is proven in the pause before a harsh word. It is proven in the apologia that does not come with excuses. It is proven when someone notices your withdrawal and does not chase you with control, but reaches with care. It is proven when someone learns your silence without making it their enmity. Intimacy is not invasion. It is invitation. It does not demand access to every locked room before trust has turned the key. It does not say, tell me everything now or you do not love me. It says, I am here, take your time. I will not confuse your pace with your worth. That kind of patience is rare. That kind of patience is not passive. It is deeply alive. It is the discipline of reverence. Because the soul opens differently when it is not being forced. A flower does not become more beautiful as someone pulls at its petals. A heart does not become more honest because someone interrogates it. Love must know how to wait without becoming cold. It must know how to be near without crowding. It must know that timing is not an obstacle to intimacy, but part of its sacred architecture. And I wonder sometimes if this is what we are all looking for beneath every desire. A place to be received, not managed, not improved, not measured against someone's dream of who we should become, received as we are becoming. With the old ache and the new hope standing together in the same room. With the parts of us that trust and the parts of us that still ask for proof. I think shared purpose begins here. Before two people can build a life, they have to learn how to build a room where truth can survive. They have to decide quietly and repeatedly that the connection matters more than the need to win. They have to choose repair over pride, presence over performance. They have to ask, what are we protecting here? And remember that love is not the battlefield. Love is the home they are trying to build. But before you go, hear this one thing. Home is not always a place. Sometimes home is the way someone says your name when you have forgotten your own gentleness. Sometimes home is the breath you take after telling the truth and realizing no one left. Sometimes home is a mirror that does not flatter you, but frees you. It shows you the face beneath the mask and whispers, you were worthy before you became strong. I want to be careful with your heart. Not careful like distance. Careful like devotion. Careful like holding something irreplaceable without trying to possess it. Careful like understanding that Your trust is not a prize to win, but a garden to tend. Careful, like knowing that every woman who has had to protect herself deserves a love that does not make protection feel like loneliness. And maybe I am speaking to you. Or maybe I am speaking to the quiet place inside you that still wonders whether it is safe to be fully seen. To that place, I want to say, you do not have to reveal everything at once. You do not have to turn your heart into an open field before you know who is walking through it. Intimacy is not a performance of openness. It is the honest unfolding of trust. It is petal by petal, breath by breath. Truth, 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 and the right love will not shame the slow opening. The right love stand that patience is not a lack of desire. It is desire with respect. It is longing with maturity. It is passion that has learned how to kneel instead of conquer. And maybe that is the kind of passion that becomes peace. Not the absence of fire, but fire held in a hearth. Fire that warms instead of burns. Fire that lights the room instead of destroying the house. I have seen how easily people chase the flame and forget the foundation. They want the feeling without the responsibility, the closeness without the honesty, the promise without the presence. But love that lasts asks more of us. It asks us to become trustworthy in the ordinary moments. It asks us to become safe in our strength. It asks us to let another person be human without using their humanity as evidence against them. That is not simple. It requires patience. It requires humility. It requires the willingness to look into the mirror and admit when we are repeating what once hurt us. I am scared instead of turning fear into distance. It requires saying, I need you, without making need feel like shame. It requires learning that intimacy is not losing yourself inside another person, but standing beside them with your soul still whole. Have you felt how rare that is, to be close and still free? To be loved and still yourself. To be known and not consumed. To be reflected and not reduced. That is the quiet design. That is the sacred geometry of two lives meeting without erasing each other. Two hearts building a language that belongs only to them. Two people discovering that love is not a place where ambition dies, but a place where the deepest dreams finally find roots. Because ambition without love can become hunger with no home, and love without purpose can become tenderness with no direction. But together, when they are held with care, they become something extraordinary, a shared road, a reason to rise, a reason to heal, a reason to become more honest, more present, more alive. Not because the other person completes the mission, but because their presence reminds you why the mission matters. They become a mirror not only for who you are, but for who you are becoming. And maybe that is what intimacy is trying to teach us. That to be loved well is not to be made smaller. It is to be called gently into your fullness. It is to have someone stand near enough to see your gifts, your wounds, your courage, your contradictions, and still believe in the wholeness underneath. It is to be reminded that your heart is not a burden. Your depth is not too much. Your need for patience is not a flaw. You are not too late for this. You are not too guarded for this. You are not too complicated for the kind of love that knows how to listen. So when I say, you are the quiet design in my universe, I mean your presence teaches me the meaning of nearness. You show me that intimacy is not a door we break open, but a threshold we honor. You show me that love can be brave without being loud. You show me that the deepest connection is not built by possession, but by recognition. And if I could leave a blessing at the edge of this chapter, it would be this. May you be met by a love that does not fear your truth. May you become intimate first with your own heart, so no one can turn your longing into leverage. May the mirror you stand before be gentle, clear, and honest. And may you never forget that the right presence will not ask you to disappear. It will help you come home. Growth does not always feel like becoming brighter. Sometimes growth feels like learning how to stay when the old version of you would have run. Sometimes it feels like taking one honest breath before answering from fear. Sometimes it feels like standing in front of the mirror and not looking away from the parts of yourself you used to hide behind distance, behind humor, behind the graceful little lie of, I don't need anything. But we do need, I need, you need, we all do. We need tenderness that does not make us feel weak. We need a place where our ambition can lay down its armor without losing its fire. We need someone who understands that a strong heart is not a heart that never breaks. A strong heart is one that keeps learning how to love without becoming cruel. It keeps learning how to trust without becoming careless. It keeps learning how to dream without forgetting the quiet hand beside it. Have you ever felt like the world applaud the version of you that was least alive, the version that kept going no matter what? the version that did not ask for help, the version that carried everything with elegance, even when the weight was quietly bending your spirit. People may call that strength, and maybe sometimes it is. Sometimes it is just loneliness dressed beautifully. Sometimes it is just survival wearing perfume. And here is the truth I've never told anyone. I do not want to be loved for my ability to endure everything alone. I want to be loved in a way that teaches me I do not have to. That is growth. Not losing independence, not abandoning the self, not becoming dependent on another person for breath or meaning. Growth is realizing that love is not the enemy of your freedom. The right love does not shrink your world. It opens windows in it. It does not take the dream from your hands. It steadies your hands when the dream feels too heavy to hold alone, because ambition is a sacred thing when it comes from love. But when it comes from fear, it can become a room with no rest. It can make you chase proof instead of purpose. It can make you believe you are only worthy when you are achieving, only lovable when you are becoming more, only safe when you are too busy to feel the ache beneath the motion. And I have lived there. I have known what it means to keep moving. Because stillness asked questions I was not ready to answer. Maybe you have too. Maybe your dreams became a shelter. Maybe your work became a language for pain you did not know how to speak. Maybe you built something beautiful because something inside you was broken. And building felt better than bleeding. And I want you to know there is no shame in that. Sometimes we survive by creating. Sometimes we heal by reaching toward something larger than what hurt us. But love asks us to grow differently. Love asks, can you be still and still feel worthy? Love asks, can you let someone see you before the victory? Love asks, can you receive tenderness without trying to earn it first? Look at me when I say this. You are not only valuable when you are impressive. So is lovable when you are strong. Those are only worth staying for you when you are easy to understand. There is a softness in you that does not need to justify itself. There is a quiet beauty in the moments when you are simply present, simply breathing, simply being human. And maybe that is what shared purpose is really built from. Not two people using each other as proof that they have arrived. Not two lives colliding because loneliness got tired. But two hearts standing side by side, each carrying the flame, each asking, How do we make the world warmer without burning ourselves down? That is a different kind of love. That is not escape. That is devotion with direction. That is intimacy with a horizon. This is where everything I thought I knew changed. I used to think love would distract me from the life I was meant to build. I thought closeness might soften the edge I needed to survive. I thought if I opened too much, I might lose the discipline that had carried me through my hardest seasons. But then I began to understand something quieter. Love does not weaken purpose when it is rooted in truth. It refines it. It turns ambition from a chase into an offering. It asks me not only what I want to achieve, but who I want to become while achieving it. It asks whether the house I am building has room for tenderness. It asks whether the future I imagine includes rest, laughter, forgiveness, ordinary mornings, a hand reaching for mine without ceremony. It asks whether success means anything if the heart that arrives there has forgotten how to feel. Have you ever looked at your dream and wondered who you would be when you finally reached it? Do you still recognize yourself? Would your softness still be alive? Would your heart still know how to receive? Would the mirror still show a soul, or only a survivor who forgot to come home? I think love gives us that mirror, not to interrupt our becoming, but to deepen it. The right person does not stand in front of your path. They stand beside you and remind you to walk it with your whole heart. They remind you that patience is not wasted time. They remind you that timing has its own intelligence. They remind you that a life built only on achievement may look tall, but without love, it can echo. And I do not want an echo. I want a home. Not only walls and warmth, not only comfort, not only the sweet idea of belonging. I mean a home inside the connection. A place where the truth can take off its shoes. A place where ambition can sit at the table with tenderness. A place where two people do not have to choose between becoming great and becoming gentle. Before you go, hear this one thing. Growth will ask you to release the love that only loved your performance. Growth will ask you to stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. Growth will ask you to choose the steady hand over the thrilling uncertainty when your nervous heart is finally ready for peace. And that may feel strange at first. Peace can feel unfamiliar when chaos has been your teacher. But unfamiliar does not mean wrong. Sometimes the safest love feels quiet because it is not trying to manipulate your attention. Sometimes the truest love feels simple because it is not built on confusion. Sometimes the deepest connection does not make you dizzy, it makes you clear. And clarity can be terrifying, because once you see what love can be, you can no longer pretend the lesser thing is enough. Once you feel presence, performance loses its charm. Once you know what it is to be met, being merely wanted starts to feel lonely. Once the mirror reflects your worth without distortion, you begin to understand how often you settled for reflections that made you smaller. Maybe that is why growth hurts. Not because we are losing love, but because we are losing illusions. We lose the illusion that waiting forever is devotion. We lose the illusion that being chosen halfway is enough. We lose the illusion that we must become less sensitive, less hopeful, less honest to keep someone close. We lose the illusion that love should make us anxious in order to feel alive. And in that clearing, something new can grow. A love with breath in it, a love with honesty, a love that can hold purpose without turning life into a battlefield. A love that does not ask you to abandon your calling, but asks you to bring your heart with you. A love where two people become mirrors for each other's courage, not cages for each other's fear. This is the kind of connection that changes the shape of a life. Not all at once, not with thunder, quietly. Like light entering a room one morning and showing you that the walls were never as narrow as they seemed. Quietly, you begin to speak with more truth. Quietly, you stop apologizing for your depth. Quietly, you trust your pace. Quietly, you let someone stand near the dream without fearing they will take it from you. And maybe that is what I mean when I say you are the quiet design in my universe. You do not pull me away from meaning. You bring me closer to it. You do not make me forget the path. You remind me why the path matters. You are not the end of ambition. You are the soul inside it. The reflection that asks, what is all this for, if not to love more deeply, live more honestly, and leave something warmer behind? May you grow without hardening. May you dream without abandoning your heart. May you find a love that does not compete with your becoming, but blesses it. And may the mirror you stand before show you not only who you have been, but the beautiful life still waiting to rise through you. There comes a moment when love stops asking, do you feel this? And begins asking, can you live this? Not in a heavy way, not as a demand, more like a quiet invitation placed in the center of the room. Because feelings are beautiful, but they are only the beginning. They are the spark, not the shelter. They are the first light, not the whole morning. And if love has become a home, it has to learn how to survive ordinary weather. I think this is where patience reveals its true face. Patience is not waiting with empty hands. Patience is care in motion. It is the way we keep choosing gentleness before everything is clear. It is the way we do not punish the flower for needing time. It is the way we stand before the mirror and tell the truth without turning away from what the truth asks of us.
Have you ever loved something before it was ready to bloom?
Have you ever held a dream, a connection, a possibility so quietly that no one else even knew how much it mattered to you? You carried it like a small flamme cupped inside your palms, protecting it from the wind, wondering if you were foolish for believing something in some still unseen. And yet you kept believing, not loud, not perfectly, but with that small, stubborn tenderness that says, there is something here. I can feel it. I know that feeling. I know what it is to trust the unseen while still fearing disappointment. I know what it is to want a sign, a certainty, a promise strong enough to silence every old fear. But life does not always give us certainty first. Sometimes life gives us presence. Sometimes it gives us a quiet person, a quiet moment, a quiet opening, and asks whether we can recognize meaning before it becomes besought. But here is the truth I've never told anyone. I used to think timing was something love had to defeat. I thought if the feeling was deep enough, it should overcome everything. Distance, fear, uncertainty, unfinished healing, old patterns, different seasons of the heart. I thought love should be powerful enough to make every closed door open at once. But now I think timing is not always the enemy of love. Sometimes timing is love's first protector, because what arrives too soon can be mishandled. What is rushed can be misunderstood. What is forced can become wounded before it ever has the chance to become whole. And maybe that is why the most meaningful things often grow slowly. They ask us to become ready, not just eager. They ask us to become honest, not just hopeful. They ask us to stop trying to possess the future and begin honoring the present. Because the present is where love proves itself, not someday. Not in the beautiful story we tell ourselves about what could happen. Here, in this breath, in this choice, in this moment where I decide whether to be present or guarded, patient or controlling, truthful or afraid. Look at me when I say this. You do not have to rush what your soul knows is sacred. You do not have to turn your heart into a race just because the world has forgotten how to wait You do not have to demand a whole garden from a seed. Some things are alive long before they are visible. Some connections are real long before they are ready to be named. Some love has to grow roots in silence before it can carry the weight of being spoken. That does not mean you wait forever for someone who never arrived. That does not mean you shrink your needs until they disappear. That does not mean patience becomes a beautiful word for self-abandonment. No. Please hear me clearly. Patience without self-respect is not love. It is longing, tied to a wound. It is standing outside a locked door and calling it destiny because leaving would hurt too much. Real patience has dignity inside it. Real patience knows the difference between something growing slowly and something refusing to grow at all. This is where everything I thought I knew changed, because I learned that the quiet design of love is not passive. It is alive with discernment. It listens. It watches. It feels. It asks, is there presence here? Is there honesty here? Is there care that returns after difficulty? Is there a willingness to build, even if slowly? Is there a mirror that reflects truth or only a dream I keep polishing because I am afraid to see it clearly? The mirror matters because it will not let us lie forever. When we stand before it, we see not only the beauty of what we hope for, but the reality of what is being lived. We see whether words and presence are moving in the same direction. We see whether patience is protecting love or hiding fear. We see whether we are waiting from peace or waiting from hunger. And that kind of honesty can save a life from becoming a shrine to someone else's uncertainty. Have you ever done that? Built a quiet shrine inside yourself for what almost was, lit candles for potential, made excuses for absence, turned crumbs into signs because your heart was starving for proof that it had not been wrong to hope. I say this with tenderness because I have known the human ache of wanting to believe. There is no shame in wanting love to be real, but love that is real will not only live in possibility, will take shape, maybe slowly, maybe imperfectly, maybe with pauses and fear and trembling honesty. But it will take shape, it will move toward you in some living way. It will not leave you alone to carry the entire meaning. It will not ask you to become both the dreamer and the builder, both the patient one and the present one, both the heart that waits and the hands that work. Before you go, hear this one thing. The right love will ask for patience, but it will not ask for your disappearance. It may ask you to breathe. It may ask you to trust the slow unfolding. It may ask you to honor the season you are in. But it will not ask you to erase your voice, your needs, your boundaries, your beautiful longing to be met. A sacred connection does not survive by making one person smaller. It survives because both keep bringing their truth into the room. And when that happens, patience becomes intimacy. It becomes the silence that is not empty. It becomes the space where trust learns to stand, and it becomes the bridge between fear and devotion. It becomes two people saying, without pressure and without escape, I am here. I am learning. I am not perfect, but I am present. That is so different from a promise. A promise can reach into tomorrow and paint the sky with hope, but presence kneels down inside today and plants something real. Presence says, I will answer with care. Presence says, I will listen when it is inconvenient. Presence says, I will not make you beg for basic tenderness. Presence says, I will let my actions become the language my words were trying to speak. And maybe that is what we have been searching for all along. Not a love that overwhelms us, but a love that steadies us. Not a love that turns our nervous system into thunder, but a love that teaches the body it can finally exhale. Not a love that demands we ignore timing, but a love that honors timing without using it as an excuse to remain unavailable. There is a difference, a real difference, and your heart knows it. Even when fear confuses the signal. So come back to the mirror. Come back to the quiet place inside you that still knows how truth feels. Ask yourself what feels peaceful and what feels familiar. Ask what is growing and what is only repeating. Ask whether this love makes you more honest, more alive, more rooted, more able to stand in your own soul, because love should not make you vanish from yourself. Love should return you. It should return you to your breath, to your softness, to your courage, to your purpose, to the part of you that still believes life can be beautiful without being chaotic. It should help you remember that home is not a place where you abandon your dreams, but a place where your dreams learn how to breathe beside someone else's. And if two people can do that, if they can honor timing without inside it, if they can practice patience without losing truth, if they can stand before the mirror and remain kind, then something meaningful begins to happen. Relationship becomes more than romance. It becomes a path. a place where both souls are invited to grow wider, a place where ambition becomes gentler and tenderness becomes stronger, a place where love does not simply say, "Stay with me," but whispers, "Become more fully yourself beside me." That is the blessing I want for you. May you never rush what deserves reverence. May you never wait in a way that wounds your own heart. May you know there's the difference between slow love and absent love, between sacred timing and fearful delay, between patience that protects the garden and silence that lets it die. May the mirror be clear. May your heart be brave. May the quiet design of your universe lead you toward a love that arrives not only with feeling, but with presence, truth, patience, and the courage to become real.